Okay, so there's an interesting thing that I was thinking about was like, how do you get people to become raving fans of something? And there might be all these kind of like hacks to actually get there, and sort of different things to actually sort of do that to create a product where somebody is an absolute raving fan of your product. I'm going to tell you like a simple thing is that you have to intentionally work towards you creating a product or maybe an organization where people actually are raving fans. So thinking about what it means to intentionally create that is very, very important. So I think like most people sort of believe that, products or organizations just great, right? Like they're just like, okay, they're really good. And what they don't realize is that to create a product or create an organization that, that where there's people that are absolute raving fans requires intentionally building the aspects where people want to be part of this thing, where they have an emotional attachment to it. And so I think like the key thing, the absolute key thing, right? Like nothing else kind of matters with this, is that you intentionally are striving and you want to actually create this thing where people are raving fans. That's really it. I know, why is that, right? Well, it's going to take an awful lot of work to get there, and you're probably going to make a lot of mistakes. The context is going to be different for everybody. It's not going to sort of work out when you first do it. But you need to take a step back all the time and say, how do I get this so people are sort of raving fans of, what it is I'm building and what I'm doing, and work towards that goal of having people that are actually raving fans of it. And I know it's like, duh, right? Like it seems like, duh, like this is stupid, right? Like how do you get people to be raving fans of this thing? You work towards creating something where people are raving fans of it. And there's like, so the fancy word for this is, you might say it's endogenous, which simply just means that you're actually caring about this thing and you actually work towards it. And then over time, as you start caring towards it, you work towards it some more, and you do that some more, and you do that some more, and it actually becomes a thing, right? Or you can think of it as like, oh, you're just intentional. You're just thinking about, hey, wait a minute, this actually matters in my life. This thing is important to me. How do I get it working, right? So it might be, getting exercise in your life. Well, talking about or thinking of, how am I going to do this? What does that mean, right? Like actually work towards getting that exercise in your life. It doesn't happen unless you actually intentionally do it. And intentionally is not like you do it now, right? And that's the end of it. It's intentionally is like, okay, I got to do this every day. That's part of what I actually do. And this is important to me, so I'm actually going to do that. The same thing with like creating, a product or an organization where people are just absolutely raving fans. You're going to make mistakes, and it is going to screw up. Right? However, if you're working towards something, right, you have to figure out, okay, let's say you make a really bad hiring decision, for example, right? And that particular person is just like not great. Well, in the short term, it's not going to be good, right? Like you can't sort of work with these things and can't sort of solve these things immediately. However, intentionally, you could either, coach up that person or figure out how to do, selection and retention better in the future. And over the course of, many years, many experiences, you intentionally kind of build this thing, and it gets better. Well, hopefully it gets better. Now, there's one sort of way that this doesn't work out, right? You probably sort of thought about this, is that, the environment changes, or, something changes and you're no longer doing that particular thing that you're, intentionally trying to do. Well, you got to get back up and think about, how do we work towards intentionally doing this so it actually makes sense? And, working towards the fact that you're creating something where people are raving fans about, a product, an organization, a service, whatever, just requires you to sit down and start doing it. That is the vast majority of the battle. That you choose to create something where people are just raving fans. If you don't intentionally do that, if you don't sort of stop and say, hey, I'm going to do this, you're not going to know what it is that you actually want to do. So your ultimate goal, if you want to create that product where people are like raving fans and everybody's excited about this thing, your ultimate goal should be, let's create this product where people are raving fans. And then work backwards from there. So that, one day you're like, okay, I don't know what to do. Well, let's do this and let's do that. And then you see, which one actually sort of works out, the sort of A/B testing approach. Or you're like, okay, well, I don't have enough resources. Well, I'm just going to start working towards this thing and get it to the point where it actually works. And, it almost seems like it's predetermined and all that kind of stuff. And in some ways, I strongly believe it actually is a little bit, right? Where giving up is the battle, or thinking about not giving up is actually the battle. And you keeping with this thing to create something where people are just raving fans, that's the challenge, right? And that is the real problem with it. And that's the hard part, because you're going to inevitably want to give up. You're going to create something, it's not going to work out, I guarantee. You're lucky if it does. But then, you're not going to know what to do next if you don't sort of like work at it. You made it so people are raving fans. I mean, that's why things implode. It's because it like gets this real big thing and it turns into something real big and then it just implodes in itself because people didn't understand how to actually do this in the long term. So if you want to create raving fans, and you want to create like where people are just devoted about something and people are excited about it, you have to intentionally do that day in and day out, every day. And in the short term being less than 10 years, maybe even 20 years, it's not going to work out as you plan. And I know that seems like astronomically crazy, but hopefully in 20 years it does. And if you wasted your time at this, right, for 20 years, I don't know what there is to say. I don't know, right? Like, you could waste your entire time doing this for 20 years. However, I don't think